So we've come to the fourth and last canto of Book 10. Book 10 is the book of the double twilight. And so far we've been in the dream twilight of the ideal. And there has been this, first of all, Death spoke his gospel of the vanity of the ideal. And then there was this debate between love and death, between Savitri and death. But now he's going to show her, Death is going to show to Savitri the dream twilight of the earthly real. It's also a twilight, a half-light of the ignorance. But it's not a beautiful, dreamy, misty, alluring, appealing twilight. There's something dark and harsh and terrible about it. There came a slope that slowly downward sank. It slipped towards a stumbling grey descent. The dim heart marvel of the ideal was lost. Its crowding wonder of bright, delicate dreams and vague, half-limbed sublimities she had left. Thought fell towards lower levels. Hard and tense, it passioned for some crude reality. The twilight floated still, but changed its hues, and heavily swathed a less delightful dream. It settled in tired masses on the air, its symbol colors tuned with duller reds, and almost seemed a lurid mist of day. A straining, taut and dire besieged her heart. Heavy her sense grew with a dangerous load, and sadder, greater sounds were in her ears. And through stern breakings of the lambent glare, her vision caught a hurry of driving plains and cloudy mountains and wide, tawny streams, and cities climbed in minarets and towers towards an unavailing, changeless sky. Long quays and guts and harbours white with sails challenged her sight a while and then were gone. Amidst them travailed toiling multitudes in ever-shifting, perishable groups. A foiled cinema of lit, shadowy shapes enveloped in the grey mantle of a dream. Imagining meanings in life's heavy drift, they trusted in the uncertain environment and waited for death to change their spirit's scene. A savage din of labor and a tramp of armored life, and the monotonous hum of thoughts and acts that ever were the same, as if the dull, reiterated drone of a great brute machine beset her soul. A grey, dissatisfied rumour, like a ghost of the moaning of a low, loud, unquiet sea. A huge, inhuman, cyclopean voice, a Babel builder's song towering to heaven, a throb of engines and the clang of tools brought the deep undertone of labour's pain. As when pale lightnings tear a tortured sky, high overhead a cloud-rimmed Ceres flared, chasing like smoke from a red funnel driven, the forced creations of an ignorant mind. Drifting, she saw, like pictured fragments, flee phantoms of human thought and baffled hopes, the shapes of nature and the arts of man, philosophies and disciplines and laws, and the dead spirit of old societies, constructions of the Titan and the worm. As if lost remnants of forgotten light, before her mind there fled with trailing wings dimmed revelations and delivering words emptied of their mission and their strength to save. The messages of the evangelist gods, voices of prophets, scripts of vanishing creeds, each in its hour eternal claimed, went by. Ideals, systems, sciences, poems, crafts, tireless there perished and again recurred, sought restlessly by some creative power. But all were dreams crossing an empty vast. Ascetic voices called of lonely seers on mountain summits or by river banks, or from the desolate heart of forest glades, seeking heaven's rest or the spirit's worldless peace, or in bodies motionless like statues, fixed in tranced cessations of their sleepless thought, sat sleeping souls. And this too was a dream. All things the past has made and slain were there. Its lost, forgotten forms that once had lived, and all the present loves as new revealed, and all the hopes the future brings had failed already, caught and spent in efforts vain, repeated fruitlessly age after age. Unwearied, all returned, insisting still, because of joy in the anguish of pursuit, and joy to labour, and to win and lose, and joy to create and keep, and joy to kill. The rolling cycles passed and came again, brought the same toils and the same barren end, forms ever new and ever old, the long, appalling revolutions of the world. So this is quite a dark and depressing picture. Who's starting today? Yes, sir.
There came a slope that slowly downward side. It slipped its rose, a stumbling descent. The dim heart marvel of the ideal was lost. Its crowding wonder of bright, delicate dreams and vague, half-limbed sublimities she had left. Thought fell towards lower levels, hard and tense, in passion for some cruel reality.
The thing that was missing in that ideal world was reality. Nothing there ever became real. And now death is going to give to Savitri a symbolic picture of the earthly reality. So they move downwards. That ideal world is at a height, but there's a slope that's slowly leading downwards. And it slipped, it moved towards a grey descent. And like when you're going down a mountain, sometimes it's very rough underfoot. You stumble as you go downwards, no? And the atmosphere has changed completely. That wonderful marvel of the ideal is lost. It was dim, but it was beautiful. There was some wonderful attraction and allurement in it. In that ideal world, there'd been this crowding wonder of bright, delicate dreams. And there had been vague, half-limbed sublimities, sublime dreams, visions, ideas, no? But they were seen only vaguely, only half outlined. To limn, it's a word that artists use, means to draw or outline. So they had been glimpsed, those sublimities, but only half seen. Now they are left behind completely. And here in this realm, thought fell towards lower levels. There everything had been floating and light, but in these lower levels it becomes hard, tense, tight. But it is passioning for, it desperately wants to experience a reality, even if it's a crude reality, something real.
This crowding wonder, it's crowding wonder for bright.
So, the ideal world was full of beautiful, wonderful things. So that has After one thing after another you would see that made you wonder, delighted you. But now all those bright, delicate dreams have disappeared. Suresh? Yes?
The C in line 5, is that Savitri or the ideal?
This is Savitri. Yes, this is Savitri. This is her experience now.
The twilight floated still but changed its hue, and heavily sweated a less grateful wind. It settled in bright masses on the air, its simple colors tuned with tuller reds, and almost seemed a lurid mist of day.
Thank you. So she had been in the twilight of the ideal. Now there is still twilight. Twilight's floated still, but its colours have changed. The hues have changed. Then they were pastel colours, something leading towards dawn, beautiful magical shades. Now they are like thick mists, swathed. Of course, I'm a bit swathed in my shawl, but we talk about mountains being swathed in mist. So it can be like a cloud, heavily swathed. This twilight is swathing another dream. This time the dream of the earthly real. That's a less delightful dream than the dream of the ideal. That twilight settles like heavy clouds of fog on the air. And the symbol colours have tuned with duller reds, deep, dark reds that are not shining. And so it almost seems like a lurid mist of day. That it's not a twilight anymore. It's a daylight, but a daylight that is very dark and misty.
Lurid as dark.
A lurid mist of day. Yeah. Lurid because of these reddish glows. Sometimes in the city where the air is polluted, when there's sunset or sunrise, the colours can be very lurid. It's this harsh, dark colours. Bhavan.
A straining thought and tire besieged her heart. Heavy her sense grew with a dangerous load, and sadder, greater sounds were in her ears, and through stern breakings of the lambent clear. Her vision caught a hurry of driving plains, and cloudy mountains, and wide towny streams. And cities climbed in minarets and towers towards an unveiling, changeless sky. Long quays and gates and harbors white with sails challenged her sight a while and then were gone.
Yes. So her heart begins to feel heavy too, as if there is some danger, some difficulty, a straining taut, it means tight, and something dreadful about her that is attacking her heart. And her senses are experiencing heavy things. Before, in that ideal twilight, everything was light and floating, but here it becomes heavy with a dangerous load. The sounds too are different. There they were vague, attractive, alluring sounds, making one want to follow them, float off into the distance. No? But now, sadder sounds and greater sounds, louder sounds were in her ears. And it's almost as if she's traveling in a train, this picture. There's this twilight all around, and there are breaks in the twilight, in the lambent glare. Lambent is like lurid. There's some harsh glow. Her vision caught a hurry of driving planes. So she sees landscapes, but they are traveling fast. No? It's just like when you're sitting in a train and the scenery rushes past you. Driving plains, and cloudy mountains, and rivers, wide, tawny streams. Sri Aurobindo often refers to the Indian rivers as tawny, which is the color of a lion, a sandy yellow color. And there are cities. She gets glimpses of cities with tall skylines, with minarets and towers, and they are rising up towards the sky, but the sky is changeless. It doesn't offer any possibility of change, and it's unavailing. It's as if nothing will ever change. You can speak of your efforts being unavailing. You try and you try and you try, but there's no result. And since there are rivers, there are also quays where the boats can tie up and land, unload their wares. Ghats, the steps down to the rivers where the people can go down and bathe. There are harbours, so there's lots of commerce going on there. Harbours white with sails. She just sees them a moment, and then they're gone, rushing past.
And so they sing from up the lower earth.
Well, it's almost as if she's travelling through now in a train. And there's something about this description. You must have heard that Sri Aurobindo in England, when he was a young boy, he lived first before going to London. He lived in Manchester, which is a very big, busy industrial town. And I too grew up in that Manchester area. Now it is very different. In the 1960s they passed some laws, Clean Air Acts, to reduce the pollution in the air. But this description here, it reminds me, there were so many factories being run on coal. And often we used to see as if the chimneys were burning. There'd be black smoke coming out. The whole landscape was full of these chimneys. And sometimes actual flame you would see coming out. This lurid, lambent glare. And because of that, the air was so thick with black dust. And it used to rot my mother's curtains, the coal dust in the air. You couldn't keep them clean. And in the winters, we would get fog, and those fogs were so thick, you could not at all see where you were going. The authorities used to light bonfires at the crossroads just to give people some guidance where they were, and you'd walk along with your hand against the wall. If you could get completely lost. I remember several times getting completely lost on my way home from school, which I did every day, but it was so different. In that thick fog you really couldn't see anything. And of course it was very, very bad for health. And because of that, all the buildings were blackened. Now they've cleaned them up and they are bright and completely different. But it seems to me that into this description comes some memory that Sri Aurobindo, or memories that Sri Aurobindo must have had of growing up in Manchester, what it was like, and then even travelling by train through those industrial landscapes. I remember taking a friend to visit my home in the early 60s. He had never seen anything like that before. He couldn't believe that people could live like that. But people did live quite happily and cheerfully there. Amazing. Of course, we didn't have these rivers, long quays and ghats and harbours. That is something of India. So, who is next? Chandra, all right.
Amidst their travel, toiling multitudes, in ever sickly, perishable growth, a foiled cinema of his shadow shades, enveloped in the grey mental of a dream.
Yes. So amidst these landscapes which she's seeing, or these townscapes, there are people working, people who have, many people who have to work hard. Their whole lives are hard working. Amidst those scenes travelled toiling multitudes. And they are in groups, but those groups are always shifting and changing. The groups are not permanent. And Sri Aurobindo says it looks like a foiled cinema of lit, shadowy shapes. Which reminds me that Sri Aurobindo spoke of his experience in 1908 in the city, particularly in Bombay, of seeing everything as if it was unreal, like just the shadows, shifting shadows on the screen, cinema screen. And all those beings and their shapes and forms and groups are enveloped in this grey mantle, this fog, this mist of a dream, a dark dream. You like to read?
Imagining meanings in life's heavy drift, they trusted in the uncertain environment and waited for death to change their spirit's scene.
Yes. So there doesn't seem to be any real significance in all those lives of all those people, but they imagine some significance. And they trusted in that environment. Although it was such an uncertain environment, they relied on it. And it seemed as if the only possible way of change was through death, waited for death to change their spirit's scene. Otherwise, it was changeless. It seemed as if it would go on forever like that. Nilba.
A savage tale of labor and a trap, of armored life and monotonous hunger, of thoughts and acts that ever were the same, as if the down retreated drone, drone of a great brute machine, beset her soul, a great dissatisfied rumor like a ghost of the moaning of a loud, unquiet sea.
You know, this word din means a terrible noise. So in those factories, those mechanical contrivances made a savage din of labor, of hard work, and a tramp. This is many feet tramping of armored life. They have to protect themselves. And there's this monotonous hum of thoughts and acts that ever were the same. When something is monotonous, there's no change, it's boring, it goes on and on. And Aurobindo says that sound of the machines and the feet and the hum of all those thoughts and actions, they were like a drone and long, continuing, monotonous sound of a great brute machine. As if the whole life is mechanical, and all this ugly, endless noise is as if attacking her soul. To beset, it's connected with the word to besiege, to attack her soul. And all of it, that sound, Aurobindo says, it's a grey, dissatisfied rumour. There's no joy, there's no delight in that sound. Rumour here means a sound, a continuous, ongoing sound. And he says that sound is something like the ghost of the moaning of a loud, unquiet sea. A sea in the distance, but a stormy sea. You can hear it faintly, but it's loud, and it's not a gentle, soothing sound. It's an unquiet, disturbed, troubled sound. All this goes with that kind of industrial landscape. Tone.
A huge, inhuman, cyclopean voice, a Babel builder's song towering to heaven, the throb of engines and the clang of tools wrought the deep undertone of labor's pain.
Yes. The Cyclops, and here he uses the adjective cyclopean. These are creatures from Greek mythology. They're kind of giants, very large, powerful creatures, very primitive creatures who live in caves, but they are very strong, and they have only one eye in the middle of the forehead. There are stories about them and about their immense strength and their cruelty. So this sound is something like that, a huge, inhuman, cyclopean voice, the voice of those giants. It's also like the song of the Babel builders. You've heard of the Tower of Babel. Perhaps it has something to do with the city of Babylon. There's a story in the Bible about these people in the Middle East somewhere who wanted to build a tower that would reach all the way to heaven. And they started to build it. They built an immense tower, and God was bothered about that. He didn't want them to reach all the way to heaven. So he made them confused, that they all spoke different languages and couldn't understand each other. And in that way they were not able to continue with their work. So that story has something to do with Auroville. Mother has mentioned it. She says that she would like Auroville to be a Babel in reverse, That instead of everybody speaking different languages and not being able to understand each other, we would all be able to understand each other, and we would succeed in building our tower to heaven. But the idea of all that labor, and confusion, a throb of engines and the clang of tools, all this sound is bringing the deep undertone of labor's pain. That sound implies a lot of hard work in very unpleasant conditions. Even children were working in those factories and those mines and long, long hours. So there was a lot of human suffering in those conditions. You'll read? Yes.
As one pale lightning teared a tortured sky, high overhead a cloud remained serious flat, chasing like smoke from a red funnel drive. The force creation of an ignorant mind.
I think we'll stop there because it's a very long sentence. Let's understand this. So first he gives us the picture of a tortured sky, a sky in which there are very stormy clouds as if fighting together. It's not a calm, peaceful sky at all. It's full of discord. But that gets torn apart by the flash of lightning. So it's something like that, he says, that high overhead in that unchanging sky, there's a series of flares, of flames, surrounded by clouds. So that's what I remember. These clouds of dark smoke, and within them the flames. And that's chasing, it's being blown by the wind, chasing like smoke from a red funnel driven. A funnel is a kind of chimney. The old steamships, they had funnels. So this picture, he says, is created by the forced creations of an ignorant mind. These are symbol images of the being produced by the minds of those beings who are living and toiling in that environment, creating even. These are the forced creations of an ignorant mind. They're the products of the ignorant mind of humanity. You will read it?
Drifting, she saw like pictured fragments flee, phantoms of human thought and fulfilled hopes, the shapes of nature and the arts of man, philosophies and disciplines and laws, and the dead spirit of old societies, constructions of the titan and the bomb.
Yes. So she sees these clouds drifting like pictured fragments, but they are always moving, whether because she's in a train or because of the wind. And these figures are phantoms, ghosts of human thought and the baffled hopes of humanity. Baffled means frustrated, unfulfilled. And these are pictures of the shapes of nature, but also of the arts of man, the skills, the creative activities of human beings. So these philosophies, these disciplines, these laws, they all pass like lurid clouds of smoke. Even the dead spirit of old societies. There have been cultures who seem to have achieved something, but then they don't exist anymore. Those are also represented there. And these are all constructions. They're somehow artificial constructions of the Titan, of the superhuman on a large scale, and the worm, that lowly creature wriggling in the mud. This is all these symbolic pictures that she sees. Sarojini?
As if lost remnants of forgotten light, before her mind there fled with trailing wings, and diamond revelations and delivering words, empty of their mission and their strong strength to send the message of the
evangelist
gods, a voice of prophet, scripts of vanishing creeds.
Yes, thank you. So in the same way, like these drifting smokes, in front of her mind there are things flying away with their trailing wings, not very strong wings. And these things that are passing, they are records of the past, things that have been revelations, great lights, but now they've become dim. Liberating words that have lost their mission, their meaning, emptied of their mission. They no longer have this power to save. These are the messages of the evangelist gods. An evangelist, an evangel is a saving message, a message that brings salvation. But now their value was past. There have been prophets in the past. There have been scriptures of old religions. But she sees all these things passing, emptied of their mission and their strength to save. They have no value anymore. Joel.
Each in its hour eternally claimed when by ideals, systems, sciences, poems, crafts, tireless there perish and again recur, sought restlessly by some creative power, but all were dreams crossing an empty vast.
So each of these messages in their time have been believed to be of eternal value, but she sees them just passing. That's the way death shows them to her. All these ideals, these systems, wonderful organizations, sciences, poems, crafts. Craftsmen with such wonderful skill have made things. We wonder how they could make them, no? There again and again and again they perish and they come back and they perish again. Because there's some creative power in humanity that wants and needs those things. But all of them appear to her just like dreams, crossing some vast emptiness, some desert.
Shraddhavan, I don't understand very well how from the last chapter is happening this. Death is showing this to her?
Yes.
Death is showing.
These are symbol worlds that he's showing to her.
So it seems that herself went there.
Yes, it's as if in a dream you move somewhere, you have an experience, no? But I feel that these are projections, these are creations of death that he's showing her, no? In order to show her the uselessness of the earthly reality.
But doesn't this have some resemblance of life?
Well, of course, it's rather a close representation of some aspects of our life, of our human life. This is a symbolic representation of earthly reality.
Yes, some level of the reality.
Yes.
There came a slope that slowly downward sank. It slipped towards a stumbling grey descent. The dim heart marvel of the ideal was lost. Its crowding wonder of bright, delicate dreams and vague, half-limbed sublimities she had left. Thought fell towards lower levels. Hard and tense, it passioned for some crude reality. The twilight floated still, but changed its hues, and heavily swathed a less delightful dream. It settled in tired masses on the air, its symbol colours tuned with duller reds, and almost seemed a lurid mist of day. A straining, taut and dire besieged her heart. Heavy her sense grew with a dangerous load, and sadder, greater sounds were in her ears. And through stern breakings of the lambent glare, her vision caught a hurry of driving plains, and cloudy mountains, and wide tawny streams, and cities climbed in minarets and towers towards an unavailing, changeless sky. Long quays and guts and harbours white with sails challenged her sight a while, and then were gone. Amidst them travailed toiling multitudes, in ever-shifting, perishable groups. A foiled cinema of lit, shadowy shapes, enveloped in the grey mantle of a dream. Imagining meanings in life's heavy drift, they trusted in the uncertain environment and waited for death to change their spirit's scene. A savage din of labour and a tramp of armoured life, and the monotonous hum of thoughts and acts that ever were the same, as if the dull reiterated drone of a great brute machine beset her soul. A grey, dissatisfied rumour, like a ghost of the moaning of a loud, unquiet sea. A huge, inhuman, cyclopean voice, a Babel builder's song towering to heaven, a throb of engines and the clang of tools brought the deep undertone of labour's pain. As when pale lightnings tear a tortured sky, high overhead a cloud-rimmed Ceres flared, chasing like smoke from a red funnel driven the forced creations of an ignorant mind. Drifting she saw like pictured fragments flee, phantoms of human thought and baffled hopes, the shapes of nature and the arts of man, philosophies and disciplines and laws, and the dead spirit of old societies, constructions of the Titan and the worm. As if lost remnants of forgotten light, before her mind there fled with trailing wings, dimmed revelations and delivering words, emptied of their mission and their strength to save. The messages of the evangelist gods, voices of prophets, scripts of vanishing creeds, each in its hour eternal claimed, went by. Ideals, systems, sciences, poems, crafts, tireless there perished and again recurred, sought restlessly by some creative power. But all were dreams, crossing an empty vast.